7th graders, we are working on Objective 5, Part 2, continuing to work with our rules for multiplication and division. But we're working with some fractions here. Remember, when you multiply fractions, you do not need a common denominator. We should look to see if we can cross-cancel. In this case, we cannot. So we just multiply. 7 times 7 is 49. 4 times 3 is 12. You could change it to a mixed number, but you can also just leave it as an improper fraction as well. And those are both positive on the last example, so the answer was positive. Here we look to see if we can cross-cancel. We can't cross-cancel here either, because 3 doesn't go into 8 and 3 doesn't go into 7. So we multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. 7 times 8 is 56. A negative times a positive is a negative. So we get a negative for our answer. Make sure we put the right number in here. Okay, then we look to see if we can cross-cancel again. We can't, so we multiply. 7 times 7 is 49. 2 times 5 is 10. Two negatives make a positive. We could, again, change that into a mixed number, or we can just leave it as an improper, like that. Good. Okay, now this is written a little bit differently, but all that is dividing fractions. So it would be the same as 2/3 divided by -4/9. Look to see if we can cross-cancel. Now remember, we cannot divide fractions. So this is where we actually have to KFC, and you learned that way back in 5th grade, I think. We keep the first fraction, 2/3. We flip the second fraction, becomes -9/4. We change division to multiplication. Then we look if we can cross-cancel. Now we actually can do some cross-canceling. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 9 3 times. Now we can multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Positive times a negative is a negative. So that gives us a -3/2. Okay, we're dividing fractions, which we cannot do, so we have to KFC. We'll keep the -5/3. We'll flip the -1/8. We'll change the division to multiplication. Look and see if we can cross-cancel. We can't, so we just multiply. 5 times 8 is 40. 3 times 1 is 3. Two negatives make a positive. We get a positive 40/3. You could change that into a mixed number again, or you can leave it as an improper. All right, now they're throwing some mixed numbers at us. So not only do we have to KFC because we're dividing fractions, but we have to rock around the clock. So we multiply. Let me rewrite that. It's 2 1/5 divided by -3/7. So we need to do 5 times 2 plus 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 11/5, and that's negative. Then we're going to keep that one. We're going to flip the second one, which is -7/3. Change division to multiplication. Look and see if we can cross-cancel anywhere. We can't. 11 times 7 is 77. 5 times 3 is 15. Two negatives make a positive, so we get 77/15. All right, now we have two mixed numbers. So we'll rock around the clock twice. We have -5.5 divided by -4.5. Okay, 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11 over 2, which is negative. Over here, we have 2 times 4, which is 8, plus 1, which is 9 over 2, and that's also negative. Now we're going to KFC. We keep the first one, we flip the second one, change division to multiplication. We can do some cross canceling here. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 2 once. That's going to make our multiplication easier. 11 times 1 is 11. 1 times 9 is 9. 2 negatives make a positive. So we just get 11 ninths. Okay, now we're doing a little work with order of operations as well. Okay, when you are dividing, you first have to simplify what's in the top or the bottom. So we have this negative 10 minus 7. We can kind of think of that as being in parentheses. So I'm going to rewrite that. 136 divided by negative 10. We don't like to subtract, so we add a negative like that. And then we can follow our rules. They're both negative, so we call that like. We add, keep the original sign. So that's going to turn out to be negative 17. And we have 136 divided by negative 17. All right, and that 136 divided by 17 is 8. We have a positive and a negative, so we're going to keep it negative. Turns out to be a negative 8. Okay, then we have a whole bunch of numbers. We are going to rewrite this a little bit. We have negative 8, then minus 10. Remember, we don't like to subtract, so we do plus a negative 10. Then times negative 1 plus 7 times negative 1. Okay, order of operations. Do you remember PEMDAS? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We must multiply and divide before we add and subtract. Okay? So we'll look for any multiplication or division. I see multiplication here. I see multiplication here. So we'll do negative 8 plus negative 10 times negative 1. 10 times 1 is 10. 2 negatives make a positive. Then plus 7 times 1 is 7. A positive and a negative makes a negative 7. Now we can use our addition and subtraction rules to finish this. Start with these two. They are unlike, so we subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 10 is bigger, it's positive, so that's a positive 2. Write the rest that we have, which is plus negative 7. These are also unlike. 2 is positive, 7 is negative. So we subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 7 is bigger, it's negative, making our final answer negative 5. So the key to this problem is making sure we multiply and divide before we add or subtract. There. And our last link. All right, we want to see if any of these will simplify to this up here. So when you have a number in front of parentheses, that means you have to multiply everything in the parentheses by that number. So negative 4 times 11 is negative 44. Negative 4 times negative 10, 4 times 10 is 40. 2 negatives make a positive, so we get negative 44 plus 40. Matches that, so A would be one option. And the same thing here. Whatever is on the outside has to be multiplied by everything on the inside. So 2 times negative 22 is negative 44. 2 times 20 is 40. So again, that matches what we had up here. So both of those are equivalent to what they gave us up there. Okay, so here, we're not actually doing any multiplication. We're just basically checking our signs. So we have a negative, a positive, and a negative, and we're multiplying. So anything that turns out to be positive or has two negatives will be equivalent to this. So we have two negatives. Oh no, we actually have three negatives. So A is not equivalent because it will turn out to be negative where this problem turned out to be positive. Down here on B, however, we have two negatives, which is the same as this. It's all multiplication, same numbers, so B is going to be equivalent. Even though they switch some numbers around, when you multiply, you're still going to get the same answer. Multiplication is what we call commutative. You can multiply in different order, and you're still going to get the same answer. That works for that one. All right, that's all the notes and examples on Objective 5, Part B.